Yeah, so go through until the first page that you see is the data entry proof sheet. Data entry proof sheet. So it's after, actually, so the first page that you see is actually the printing, so you see the label? Okay, so go past the label, turn the label over. And so that's the printing instructions, right?
Yes.
Okay, so make sure we're looking at the same thing. And then what I have is I have this, the list of loan documents that in order. So I have that separately. And I just hold this off to my side so I can look at it. And the documents that we've just put tabs on are here in front of us. Okay? So you've got your set of documents that are tabbed. You've got the other things that are face down. But so that when we go through these documents here, this is a set of this is the description of the loan documents. You can follow if you want to. And so this is us at home dealing where we've printed out, we've received the assignment from our hiring company. We've confirmed the appointment with the borrowers over the phone, and this all took place yesterday, right? This is all taking place yesterday right now. We've confirmed the appointment. We're printing them out, and we did a quality assurance to make sure nothing's cut off. And then we went through and we tabbed all the spots that need the attention, the borrower's attention to sign or initial or anything like that. And then to the right of it, you see the blue notes here. I flag for quick and easy access the right to cancel, the note, the closing disclosure, and the first payment letter. Those are things that I have tabbed off to the right for quick and easy access. Because sometimes when you sit down at the signing table, you think, okay, we're going to do this, let's sign this, when we're going to go through it in order. And the borrowers will throw you for a loop because they'll say, stop, before we do anything, I want to know how much is my first payment. And because we've tabbed them off on the right-hand side like this, we can go, okay, Mr. Signer, here's the first payment letter. I can go right to it. Here's your first payment letter. You know, here's a breakdown of your payment. Here's when it's due. Do you have any questions? No. Okay. Well, can we proceed? Well, I have one more question, and and then if they say, I have a question about the loan. Is it a fixed rate loan? Well, we've already tabbed that the closing disclosure. So we can say, here are the terms of your loan, Mr. Signer. And we're pointing. We don't have to say aloud. We don't have to say, hey, it's a 30-year loan. It's a refinance. It's a fixed rate. I'm pointing to it. I'm showing him, here are the terms of your loan. And here's the loan amount. Here's your interest rate. And then, I like this. The closing disclosure for me is the most helpful. It's a nice big font. It's very legible. Can this amount increase after closing? No. Okay. Anyway, so does that answer your question, Mr. Signer? Yes. Okay. Great. Let's continue. And so then I put it back in order. I'll put it back in order, and then we're back to begin with. So here, and I'll say this just like this. Okay. Actually, let's. I'll just say these are printing instructions because that's what they are. And I don't take them out because there's risk. And you start taking things out of a loan package that they send you as a PDF. You start taking things out that you think, well, this doesn't apply to the borrower. They don't care. You run the risk of taking something out that you shouldn't. Now, I don't give them a copy of my notary instructions, but a copy, these print instructions is not a big deal. And it was included in the PDF itself. The instructions that come to us as a signing agent usually come separate. We'll get those separately anyways, but I would never share with them, here's all my signing instructions. Okay. Sorry, I just kicked your camera. Sorry about that. So these are just print instructions. I'm just going to put these face down, and this is exactly how I would say it to the borrower. Okay. And
so are you on the next page of data entry proof sheet?
right, and so we're doing two things. We're going to go through to identify what the signature blocks are, and then how would we say this to the signer, right? You're going to go through these documents at home and clear up. You're going to go through these documents at home, and you're going to clear up any confusion or question you have about the documents with the signing company. And so you're going to call them or question, say, hey, what about this? What about this? And you're going to get all those questions resolved. But now we're going to go through the documents. The next document is the data entry proof sheet, and I'll say, this is the data entry proof sheet. It's a 3-page document, and I'm looking at the title at the top of the page, and I'm looking at the bottom of the page immediately. And I'll say, this is the data entry proof sheet. It's a 3-page document. These have the loan details. This is something that your closing team is going to use. There's nothing to sign. There's nothing to sign, but you're welcome to take a look if you want. And sometimes they'll say, let me take a look. And sometimes they won't. And if they don't care, then it goes face down in the pile, because I'm going to keep it in stacking order for the next team. And then same with the next set here. This is the data entry proof sheet regarding fees. It's a 2-page document. So I'm looking at the top of the page. This is the data entry proof sheet. It is a 2-page document. There's nothing for us to sign here. You're welcome to take a look if you want. No, they'll decline typically, or they'll take a look and they'll hand it back to you, and you put it face down. Okay, well, it's like every stacking order is different. Sometimes they'll have that CD, the closing disclosure, right up top, which is great. Sometimes it's in the middle. Sometimes it's buried at the bottom, like this one is, and that's why having them tabbed out so you can access them quickly whenever you need to. That way you're not digging for documents in a pile of papers. So I say these are the instructions to your escrow and title and closing agent. There's nothing for us to do here. These are their instructions. It's a 4-page document. You see at the bottom of the 4th page, there's a signature mark. But guess who signs that?
That agent.
Right, this is the settlement agent. We are not the settlement agent, we are the signing agent. And so this is something that you would not have tabbed for a signature, right?
I did it right.
Yep, you did great. So then this goes face down. This is the loan disbursement instructions. These are instructions for your lender. It's a 2-page document. But you will have gone through this at home, so you could see whether it has sometimes it'll have a signature for the borrower to acknowledge, sometimes not. This one doesn't. So you can say it with me if you want. This is the loan disbursement instructions. It's a 2-page document.
And there's nothing for us to sign.
And there's nothing for us to sign here. You can take a look if you want, because you don't want to ever refuse them to look at anything. You don't want them to feel like you're trying to hide anything from them. But you can tell them whether it has a spot for them to sign or not, and whether but they're always welcome to take a look. And they of course have their own stack for reading later. But if they want to look at it now, it's their right to. So the next page is the note, which was the first thing that we tabbed.
Put that on here.
And the note is typically not something that they want to see, but it's an important enough document that I do like to flag it just for a quick and easy access.
Okay.
So this is the note. It is a 2-page document. It is your written promise to pay. Okay, this is the note. It is a 2-page document. It is your written promise to pay. And this is how I would present the document to them. I'll show the camera. So I've got it splayed apart, right? And I'm showing them the document and then highlighting to them where they need to sign, what needs their attention. And I'll show this to you as well. So I present them the document like this. They're sitting across the table from me. This is the note. It is a 2-page document. It is your written promise to pay. And there's a spot there for both of your signatures when you're ready. So I'm handing it to Mrs. Signer, because her name is listed first. Mm-hmm. So I'm handing it to Mrs. Signer, and then she's passing it to her husband, Mr. Signer. Mr. Signer's handing it back to me. And as they're handing the documents that they've signed back to me, I'm noting, okay, I'm noting that they've signed it, And you see on the right side where it says seal, that just means signature. It's another phrase for signature. It doesn't mean we put our notary stamp there. Okay, so that's just a legalese term for signature. So as they're handing the document back to me, I'm making sure they've signed it, and if it called for a date, I'm noting that they put the date there. And also first, middle initial, last name. Sometimes documents will have first and last name, sometimes first, middle initial, last name, and we have to have them sign it exactly as it is. Yep.
Okay.
But I'll leave the signature sticky notes on it until the very last when I'm doing the quality assurance check to make sure nothing's missed. Then I'll take off the sticky notes, because obviously the closing team, they don't want our sticky arrows, and we want to be able to reuse those if we can.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, if they haven't written across the arrow, the sticky note arrow, they're repositionable. You can I just stack them up on the plastic thing that it came on.
Oh,
Well, they won't fit back in your dispenser, true enough. They won't fit back in your dispenser. But if you have anything you could stick it to, just stick it to it. Because those are expensive, and our costs add up. Now, if they've been used a few times and some people are really extravagant with their signatures and they'll write across it, then I'll ditch them, because I don't want somebody to sit at a signing feeling like they've got used office supplies on their nice loan paperwork. Okay, so the next page is the Mortgage Electronic Registration Systems Inc. Writer, the MERS writer. And so I've said the name. It is a 4-page document, because I'm looking at the bottom here. And so as I say what it is, I'm gathering up all 4 documents. You never want to just hand them a signature page. You want to hand them the whole document, the whole document. So I'm saying to them as I gather, this is the Mortgage Electronic Registration Systems Inc. Writer. It is a 4-page document. Your loan number is going to be assigned a number to track it electronically. And the signature page, when you're ready, you're going to sign here. And you're acknowledging that they're going to assign a number to it, and that, you're acknowledging that the loan may be sold to somebody else for processing or servicing, rather, and that may happen. And so they're required to notify you of that, and you're just signing the acknowledgement. And so I'll show it to you. So I'm handing it to him like this. This is the Mortgage Electronic Systems Inc. Writer. It's a 4-page document. They're going to assign your loan number, a tracking number, and it's you're signing the 4th page as acknowledgement that they may sell servicing to another company, and they'll notify you if that happens. It's really common. When you have a loan, sometimes it's handled by the company you signed up with, and then down the road you get a notice that, oh, now my loan is being managed by a different company. Totally common, very common. So this is how I present it to them. So I've got it in.
So all 4 pages, but the signing page is on top.
No, look how I have it. Because otherwise that's a good way to mix up documents. So this is how you're having it. Notice it's in order. It's in order. So but look how I'm doing it. So this is see the signature page is on the back. Okay? And so those arrows are sticking out. So you're going to have people who are readers, and by presenting it to them like this, you're saying, here's the document, and here's the 4th page is what needs your attention. Right? So the people who are readers can read it, but then you've met the obligation by handing them the whole document. You're not handing it to them like this. You don't hand it to them like this and say, okay, good luck finding that. Because it just creates, they're going to get a paper cut. They'll add to their irritation. So I always hand it to them like this. It's split. Okay? And I'll do it. So, and I do it like that. This is like this. And then Mrs. Signer's going to sign it, Mr. Signer's going to sign it, they're going to hand it back to me. So what I'm doing, I'm making sure it says page 1 of 4, page 2 of 4, I'm making sure it's in order, basically. Because sometimes they hand it to you back in order, sometimes not. I'm checking to see they've signed their name and today's date. Today's date, 3/21/2020. I'm making sure they've written out the year 2020, okay? The next page is the deed of trust, the deed of trust. And remember before our our instructions said, oh, make sure they initial the bottom of the note where indicated, right? Well, this is not the note, this is the deed of trust. So that's a human that wrote, they made a mistake on their instructions to us. And maybe that was something that we noticed that when we were going through the documents at home, and we said, hey, there's no spot for initials on the note, but there is on the deed of trust. Did you mean the deed of trust? Oh, yes, we did. I'm sorry, that's my typo. And because obviously we wouldn't want to, there's no spot on, let me go back to the note. Let's go back to the note just for a split second. You notice there's no spot on the note to sign or to put initials. There's no spot. So this was their mistake when they were giving us instructions. They really meant to say, make sure the borrowers initial the deed of trust. That's what they meant to say. So we're obviously not going to make them write on the bottom of the note because we're not supposed to do that. Okay, so this is the deed of trust, and I'll tell them, this is the biggest document in the loan package. It's 11 pages, and this one requires signatures on initials on all pages, and then initials on all pages, so it should look like this. I just trying to dig up all 11 pages, so I hand it to them as one document. Just one second. So I might hand it to him like this. So it says, this is the deed of trust. This is the security instrument that's going to be recorded with the county land records. This is the deed of trust. This is a security instrument. It's going to be recorded with the county land records. It's an 11-page document. It's the biggest document in your loan package today. They need you to initial the bottom of each page, and then on the last page, I don't know if you can see that up there on the screen, on the last page here requires your signatures and also requires me to notarize. And so I'll hand it to them whole. I'll hand it to them like this, and I'll say exactly like this. This is the deed of trust. This is the security instrument. It's going to be recorded with your county land records. It requires your initials at the bottom of each page, and then a signature and a date. On the last page, and then me to notarize. So I'll hand it to them like this so they can do it, and they'll sign one at a time. Mrs. Signer will sign it, each page, and then hand it to Mr. Signer, and then they'll hand it all back to you. And you're making sure it's in order, and it's easy. It's because it's numbered at the bottom, page 1 of 11. Mm-hmm. So you're just making sure everything's in order. You're getting it back. You're making sure, okay, they've initialed the bottom of each page. You're making sure, okay, they've signed first name, middle initial, last name, and a date. Seal in this case, again, is just signature. Doesn't mean stamp. But down here it does mean stamp. So this is us filling out State of Washington, County of, and that's the county that we're in. And in my imaginary city, finite Washington is in Thurston County. So that's how we would fill it out. State of Washington, County of. And then when you're filling it out, so they've handed it back to you signed. So then I put this stuff face down, and then I'm filling out the portion that it is for me to notarize. This is the 21st day of March, 2020. Notary Public. So I'm signature here, my signature. Washington, residing at. So there they want your address. So you're going to nicely and neatly print your address here. My appointment expires, and even though your stamp may show your expiration, your notary expiration date, still write it in. Don't leave any blanks. Write your expiration date, and then look, they've left you a nice big space for your stamp to go. And I put this here just as a reminder that my notary stamp should be there.
Now, with this line, so is this one of the pages that was shrunk? The reason I'm asking is because
because this is one of the small ones. Okay. Because the font is so small. And another clue that this was a shrunk one is, I'm just going to go to the very front page.
Well, what made me ask was because the residing at, for adding your address, that line is not very long for you to actually put.
Well, right. It doesn't have to all be on that same line, right? And you could start it. Let me just go to that page. So I could write My address, 6333 75th Avenue, right below it, Olympia, Washington, 985, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
But yeah, sometimes they don't give you enough line to write your full address on this whole line. What you don't want to do is write in the margin, ever. And even encourage your signers. So look at all this space right here for a signature. They can put signature. Some people will start the date way over here, then they're scribbling it off into the margins. I encourage them, stay in the margin. And so because this is one of those documents that's going to be printed on a legal size, you can tell because look how the margins are shrunk. Look how small that font is.
Okay.
And so if you're seeing this at home, you're doing quality assurance and you're thinking, this is really small font, well, that's your clue that you are probably printing on the wrong size paper and you've probably shrunk it down. And that would not be cool. So you want to make sure you double check that. Look at your PDF. What does your PDF say on the computer? If it says 8.5 by 11 and that's the way they sent it, then different story. Okay. If they sent it to you in that size, that's the size. You can't possibly make it bigger, right? Because that's a restriction on you. You can't do that. You can shrink a document smaller, but you can't. All right. So then the next page is the notice of right to cancel. And what I do is I pick up all three at the same time. I pick up the three documents and I tell them, this is their right to cancel. Okay. So you have 3 days from the date of closing to cancel. Sunday doesn't count. Today's Saturday, so tomorrow doesn't count. Tomorrow's Sunday, so we're counting
Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Right, so Tuesday. So this the 25th, what day is it? Is it Wednesday? Oh my gosh, let's look at it.
Because today is Saturday?
Today is very much, today is very,
Today does count, because it's...
today, no, 3 days from today. So
Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday then.
okay, so I just look at a calendar. I don't have the, yeah, okay. So I'm looking at the calendar here. So look, the 25th is Wednesday. So, and this is something that you're going to note even before you go there. You're noting that it has today's date on all the documents, right? Today's date. Before you come to the signing, you're noting the rescission date. And a few times I've caught the rescission date and it's been wrong. And so you just call the lender, call your hiring company and you say, hey, the closing, or excuse me, the rescission date shows this date, and shouldn't it be, you tell them what you think it should be. Oh yes, it should be that date. So have the borrower, if there's a correction to be made in the rescission date, you're not making that correction yourself. You're instructing the borrower to put a line, a single line. Don't scribble it out, don't black it out. A single line through the wrong date, and you're putting the correct date on. The borrower is putting the correct date. One of them is correct date up above, and then their initial. Okay? So I'm handing them the right to cancel. It's 3 pages, and I'm handing them all 3 at once, and I'm handing it like this. This is your notice of right to cancel. You have by midnight, March 25th, if you do wish to cancel. These are the instructions to follow. You would sign and date here if you're going to cancel. But in this instance, Mr. and Mrs. Signer, you're signing at the bottom. You're just acknowledging that you've received your 2 copies. We're going to have you sign all 3 copies, sign and date all 3 copies. I'm going to have you keep 2 copies, and I'll return 1 copy with the loan documents. And so I'm handing it to them like this. So they can see that it's.
I did do right again.
Yep.
With the signature.
Yep. And yeah, absolutely. So it just calls it out so that they each know that. And if I have different color sticky notes, I'll try and make each one different so that it's not the same red. You know what I mean? If they're all the same anyways, that's great. But if I have different colors, I'll try to make one this color and one a different color. But so they're going to sign that, and when they're handing them back to you, you're paying attention. You're noting that they've signed as written and dated. You're going to instruct them, go ahead and keep 2 copies, and then 1 copy goes face down in your pile. But this is just practice workshop, so we can put them all face down. So we can practice again at home, keep all of our documents in order. Okay, so now I'm a little bit crooked here. Okay, so this document this is the HUD VA addendum to the Uniform Residential Loan Application. So So addendum just means an addition. It's a 4-page document. So I'm picking up, I've said the name, how many pages it is. I'm picking up all the documents. So I see, let's look at them. So there's nothing to sign on the first page. Okay, there's nothing to sign. There is a spot for a signature on the first page, but do you see this is signature of the officer of lender or mortgage. So this is the loan officer is going to sign that. So there's nothing to sign on the first page. They do sign on the second page, and it's really obvious where they sign and date.
On both sides.
Yep, sign and date. And then there's nothing to sign on the third page. Well, there are places to sign on the third page, but that's not us, right? That's not the lender, that's not you and me. This is the mortgage representative, okay? So there's nothing to sign on page 3 of 4. So there should be no sticky notes on that one.
Correct.
Okay? The fourth page is another spot, so it should look like that. You got sticky notes. If you got them like that, that's good. Okay, so this is a multiple page document. So it's 4 pages. Signatures are required on the second and fourth page, and I'll hand it to them just like this. I'll say exactly that. This is the addendum to the Uniform Residential Loan Application. This is just an addendum. And so signatures and dates are required on the second and fourth pages. And I'll hand it to them just like this so they can see, I don't stack it all together so that it's all combined. I splay them apart like this. Okay? And then they sign it, they date it, they hand it back to you. You're making sure that it's in correct order. You're putting it in the pile face down. All right, the next page is the Uniform Residential Loan Application. This is the final typed version of the loan application. Okay, this is the Uniform Residential Loan Application. It is the final typed version of the loan application. And that's all you have to say about the document. You can highlight like this. You can see that there's signatures required on the first page at the top. Borrower, co-borrower. Yeah, and the thing is, this is why you want to flag these at home. Sometimes you're sitting and doing a signing. Sometimes it's a nice, brightly lit kitchen table that you're working on. Sometimes it is a dimly lit living room coffee table. And so these little flags, it may seem kind of, I don't know, it may seem silly, but for me it really helps because it draws my attention. I never know what to expect when I go to somebody's house, if it's going to be brightly lit or dimly lit. And so these little flags help me. It helps me wear the sign. So this is going to be borrower, co-borrower. Okay. The second page, there's nothing to sign, right? Nothing to sign on the second page. Oops. Page 2.
So since the names are not printed on here, is it important that they still sign in the same order? So far it's been Mrs. and then Mr.? Is that
I would keep it the same rhythm.
Okay.
I would keep the same rhythm.
Okay.
Have Mrs. sign or sign first. Since she's been first on every other thing, you wouldn't want to mess them up and just, because it confuses the borrower too.
Okay.
So just keep the same rhythm. Then you notice on page 3 of 4, see that X, where that X is in that box? So what's X'd out there is demographics. It used to be that they had the demographic information on the loan application. And then they tried to say, hey, we don't discriminate, we don't look at demographics in considering your loan. Well, it's hard to say that when the demographic is on the loan application, right? So this is an old version of the document they're still using. They've just crossed it off. Whoops, I just moved it. And you can see it's small, but you can see that there's 2 signatures required, right? On that page 3 of 4, do you have 2 signatures tabbed?
Yep.
Okay, borrower and co-borrower and date, right? And then on the last page, page 4, there's another signature required.
Yes.
And so this is show me how you would present the document. So you're holding it up.
There's
Okay.
a signature on the first, the
This
third,
is,
and the
but
fourth
first state what
page.
it is. This is the Uniform Residential Loan Application, right? It says it across the top. Uniform Residential Loan Application. This is the final typed version of your loan application, and that's all you need to say about it. So this is a Uniform Residential Loan Application. It's 4 pages. Signatures are needed on the first, right? First page,
Third page.
third and fourth. First, third, and fourth. And you splay it out just like that. And you're handing it to Mrs. Signer. She's taking care of business. Hands it over to Mr. Signer. They handing it back to you, and you're just you can just do a quick glance, cursory glance. You really are doing your true quality assurance at the end, but when they hand it back to you, you're just making sure it's in correct order. Okay. And I'm watching as they sign. I'm saying the date out loud. I'll say it 20 times during the signing. No joke. When they start, especially because they're struggling. They're getting tired, you're midway through the loan package and they're like, okay, yep, 2020, or sorry, 3, what am I saying? Today's month is third month. It is 3/21/2020, and I always remind them every time I say 2020, don't abbreviate it. They don't want it to be abbreviated. So guess what? The next page is actually the demographic information, and I tell them, this is the demographic information addendum. There's nothing to sign. It just contains demographics. There's nothing to sign. You're welcome to take a look if you want to. And I'll hand it to them like this. They'll usually just wave their hand and say they don't care. But I hand it to them both together so they can look at it if they want to. Face down, we'll keep it in order. All right, and then I might tell them, I'm like, hey, look, we're halfway through. Look, I'm going to just scoot this over I'll show them the stack progress. Hey, look, we're halfway through the loan signing. You're doing great. And what this does is, the reason I do that is, number 1, to give them encouragement, to say, okay, we're halfway through, we're making progress. And number 2, you get some chatty Cathys. Some folks really like to talk. And it brings attention to the fact that, look how much time has gone by, and you are only halfway through. And usually the wife will scold the husband, or vice versa, and say, all right, we need to less talk and more signing, and they'll say usually at that point. But I try to give them a progress, to give them encouragement, and to, without saying less talk. I can't very well tell them less talk and more signing. I can't say that. But I could bring it to their attention subtly by saying, look at this. We're halfway through, and look how much time has gone by. Okay, so the next page is the Affidavit of Occupancy. And so I'm looking at the title, I'm looking at the bottom. That's how I know. It's the title and the bottom. So it's Affidavit of Occupancy. It's a 2-page document. And what this does is it states your intention of how you're going to use the property. And you can see, I'm going to draw this to your attention. This one has already been, it's got some spots to check. Do you see the X boxes here? Mm-hmm. Now they've already checked for us, so that's great. Had this been blank, that's part of our job, is to say they need to specify how is this being used. Chances are these will be already filled in, but if this wasn't, they would have to pick, is this a primary residence? Is it a second home? Is it an investment property? But they've already specified this is a primary residence and it's for refinance only. And so they're going to sign and date, and the second page is for you to notarize.
And again,
questions?
Yes, please.
Yes.
And if by chance this was left blank, that's something that the client would mark?
Yes, the client fills it out. You do not.
Okay.
You do not fill out any document.
Okay, and do I need to contact the hiring company to let them know that that's been done or no?
That's a good question. If you're not sure, yes, call. I've done these enough before that I know the routine. I know what they're going to tell me. And if part of our instructions is if there's a spot where the signer has to make a choice, we have to point it out to them. Because just like the next page, a document further on is going to be the disbursements. Like, how are you going to pay your,
I think I remember seeing that the leftover.
Yeah. So right. So if there's a document that they have to make a choice, They know that the borrower is going to have to make a mark. What they can't do is fill in things, extra things on the bottom of the page. You know what I mean? They can't add extra marks. They can't countersign a different name. But if they're being asked to make a choice, and then you instruct them to make a choice, you know, fill this out, if they don't know, because you can't tell them, I urge them to, well, read out loud the options. Which one makes sense to you? They're going to know whether or not if it's a refinance, they know whether they live in their house or not, right?
Okay.
And you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
But yeah, if there's any question, you're going to call the hiring company. We have them fill this out. We're not making the marks ourselves because we can't be accused of doing that. You know what I mean? We're there to notarize, witness their signature, to check their ID, make sure they're signing of their own volition, and that nothing's shady. But we're not there to fill out forms for them. In fact, that's one of the things we're prohibited to do. So we're instructing them that if this wasn't marked, we would instruct them that it needs their attention, so it needs to be selected.
Okay, and then one more question,
Mm-hmm.
please. On 1.4, we acquired the property on, that's left blank?
Yes.
They need to fill that in
Yes,
as well?
and that's a good catch. And so that's another thing if it's a refinance, they should know when they bought the house. If they don't know, there are documents they can refer to, right? But yes, that is absolutely, they would have to fill that out.
Okay.
So that is a very good catch. Okay, so then you're handing it to them like this to sign, and then guess what? The second page is for you, the notary. When they hand it back to you, you're noting it, and then you're filling out. And you're checking each time. You're looking at the notary language. And I'm making this crooked. Let's make this straight again. Making sure that it says State of Washington, County of. If it's not been filled out, you're writing Thurston County, right? My imaginary town of Finite is in Thurston County. And then you're making sure that these names are Jane and John Signer, not somebody else's name. And then you're filling it out. So this one's a little bit longer line. So signature here. Okay, 21st day of March 2020. My signature here, residing at. So I'm very neatly printing my address in here. My appointment expires on, and then notary stamp goes right there.
Right then and there?
Right then and there. I don't save anything for the last. As they go, I go.
Okay.
Yep. All right. The next page is the amortization schedule. This is another one. Look how ridiculously small this font is. This tells you that this should be printed on a legal size document. They're usually much longer. So this is the amortization schedule. It is a 7-page document. 7-page document. This is the life of your loan. This is a breakdown of the payment and interest and principal for the life of your loan, right? And so I'm presenting it to them like this so they can, if they wanted to really look through every single document, yep, just like that. This is the amortization schedule. It's a 7-page document. This is a snapshot of all your payments for the life of your loan. Has a breakdown of the principal and interest. You're welcome to take a look if you want. And I tell them, you're welcome to take a look if you want. Need your signature and date on the last page, please. When you're ready. I always say that, need your signature and date when you're ready. Okay, and then they pass it back. All I'm doing is making sure, because they'll go through and they'll flip through, and sometimes you'll get them back out of order. They're handing them back to you. You're putting them back in order, and then boom, face down. Okay, the next document. Am I still within my little boundary here? Okay. This is the credit score disclosure. It is a 2-page document. This is a credit score disclosure. 2-page document, so it just lets you know, they're required to let you know that your credit score is being used in consideration, right? Exactly, just like that. Credit card disclosure, it is a 2-page document, and it just is they're advising you that your credit score is being used in determining the loan. And when you're ready, signature and date on the second page, please. They hand it back. You're looking to verify, okay, Jane Signer, Jane A. Signer, John Q. Signer, date, and hopefully they're staying keeping their dates within that margin. Okay? They hand it back to you. You're saying thank you for each document. I don't care if I'm saying thank you 50 times. I'm always saying, whenever they hand it back to me, thank you, or beautiful, or looks great. So now, the next page is the first payment letter. This is the first payment letter. It is a 2-page document. And it's okay, get in the practice of saying it. After I say it, you say it too. This is a first payment letter. It is a 2-page document.
The first payment letter is a 2-page document.
And this shows you how the breakdown of your monthly payment. It shows you principal and interest. And I'm never saying the numbers out loud. I am just pointing. I'm just pointing. This is a breakdown of your monthly payment. It shows you when it's due. And on the second page, and so the first page needs a date and signature. The second page, if you look, the second page are temporary coupons. And the reason you call this to their attention is it tells them when payment is due. It tells them when it would be considered late and what penalty would be. And it tells them where the payment needs to be mailed, right? Where they're going to send it. Okay, so when I hand it to them, I'm handing them both pages. This is one of the ones where the signature's on the front. So this is the first payment letter. This is a breakdown of your monthly payment, your monthly mortgage, and it shows you how to pay, where to pay, and any penalty. Signature on the first page when you're ready, and then their
Signature and date.
Signature and date, yes, signature and date, and you're encouraging them to stay in the margin so they're not scribbling the date off the end. Okay. So the next page is the hazard insurance endorsement letter. I don't see any numbers on the page. That tells me it's a 1-page document. Sometimes. I've already looked through it, so I know. So this is the hazard insurance endorsement letter. There's nothing more to say about this. That's what it is. And you'll find that in the signing agent, the signing guidelines, there's not something to say about, they don't have something to say about every single document. And this is one of the ones where you just have to say the title, and sometimes what it is in the title. This is a hazard insurance endorsement letter. It's 1 page. There's nothing for you to sign here. You're welcome to take a look if you want. And that's exactly how I do. No, you don't care? Okay, great. There you go. Sometimes they want to look at it, sometimes they don't. The next document we have, this is the initial escrow account disclosure statement. It is a 2-page document. It is the initial escrow account disclosure statement. It is a 2-page document. And what this is it's a snapshot of your escrow account for the coming year. It's a snapshot of the escrow account for the coming year. And when you're ready, date and sign on the second page, please. They sign and date it. They're handing it back. You're making sure they've done that. You're putting it down, going on to the next document. Question? No, okay. The next page is the notice of furnishing negative information. It's not numbered, so this is 1 page. This is the notice of furnishing negative information. It's a 1-page document. And what this is, it means if you have a late or missed payment, it may adversely affect your credit rating. It seems ridiculous. Some of these forms that they have to sign, it seems ridiculous. But you know that there's probably a story behind it. Somebody took out a mortgage, took out a loan, refinanced or whatever, had a late payment or a missed payment, and then went back to the lender and said, well, I didn't know this would adversely affect my credit. So now they've had to produce a document that says, okay, if you miss or you're late on a payment, it may adversely affect your credit, and you're signing and acknowledging this. So I imagine there's a story like that behind every document that seems silly, but it's also a good CYA. Keeps them in accordance with the implementation of the Fair and Accurate Credit Transaction Act of 2003. They're required to provide you the following. Okay, so it's a requirement.
So the whole writing on the coffee cup, the coffee is hot.
Yes. And that drive-through window, yes. Yeah. Okay, so they're signing and dating. You're verifying. It goes face down in the list. The next page is a signature name affidavit. And now because there's two signers, this sometimes will be one signer on one page, another signer on another page. This one has both names on the same document. So just know that if you see it on the same document, great. If they're two separate documents, okay too. But they both will need to be notarized by you at the bottom. And so this is like when they run a credit name. You know, sometimes people have like a long list of names on that come up, and so they're just acknowledging that, and they sign and date. If it happens there's a document and they're having to sign it, and they're like, well, I was never known as Jane, this one just has an example, Jane Signer and Jane A Signer, John Signer, John Q Signer. But say, if there's a name listed there, like, I was never known as that, I'm not signing it. What they could do is next to that write never known as in their own writing,
Okay.
and then initial. They can initial it. So, but what happens is those numbers, those aren't just randomly picked out of a hat. They've run a credit report, and that's a name that's come up in a credit report associated with their name. But it's not for you to argue whether or not they are or aren't them. So that when you get it back, you're just looking again. This form, State of Washington, County of Thurston, is already filled out. So on the 21st day of March 2020, and they've already got the names on there. If this was blank, you'd be handwriting the name of both people. And you would use, just like this, Jane A. Signer and John Q. Signer. In that order. I try to keep everything in order. And then you fill out the notary portion and stamp. This one doesn't ask for resides at, so that's fine. Tax record information sheet. Tax record information sheet. It is a 2-page document. And look, there's a spot there on the second page for a signature, right? But that is not us, right? Exactly. So if you didn't put a sticky note there, you get a gold star. Yep, that means you understand your role. We are not the closing agent. We are not the settlement agent. We are a signing agent, and the roles are very different. So I would tell them, this is the tax record information sheet. It's a 2-page document. There's a spot for your settlement agent to sign on the second page. There's nothing for you to sign, but you're welcome to take a look if you want. And that's exactly what I tell them. And they'll just wave. So the next page is the USA Patriot Act form, the one that they gave us really specific instructions on. Make sure you collect 2 forms of ID for each person, and you're responsible. And if you don't do it right, we're not going to pay you all your. So there's a monetary penalty involved if we don't get some of these documents right? So there's one for each signer, right? You notice that the first one is borrower name says Jane A. Signer. And see the sticky note here, I put signing agent. And so that's when we fill this out, we're writing Jane is presenting us with her Washington State driver's license, or we're checking this for driver's license. USA/Washington. Here we are writing down the driver's license number for them. It's required. And we are writing the issuance date and the expiration date. Second document she's presenting us with is going to be it could be a passport number, so passport is being marked. Country is going to be, it's a USA passport / issued in Washington. Going to write down the passport number, the issue date, the expiration date. Any comments here, if you have any comments to make about it, you can. Signature is your signature, and then you're going to print your name, and then your title here is what? Signing agent and today's date, right?
So this is the one, I don't know if you heard me say, I'm kind of stuck on this one. So I felt like that it would be me signing it.
But right, and yep, and that's okay. And you notice there's no notarial language.
Right.
No notarial. So that's another clue that that's your role as signing agent. There's no notarial language. And so you would fill that out for both of them. There's Jane Signers, you get hers done, taken care of. And that you fill out the bottom, and then John Signer's form. The print quality is not as great on this document, but so do the same for Mr. John Q. Signer. Okay, so what I would say about this, okay, that's what I didn't cover. So this is the USA Patriot Act form, I would say. And this is required by lenders. Lenders are required to have this as a prevention to prevent money laundering and the financing of terrorism. So they're required. And so that's what you could say about the Patriot Act form to the buyer. Because sometimes if they haven't, especially if they haven't done any kind of opened up a new bank account recently or done anything recently, it's kind of a weird form. And I thought it was strange when I opened up another account at Timberland Bank just a couple of years ago, or a year and a half ago, I forget. Anyways, I opened up a bank and I'm like, well, what's this? What is this? This is new. I've never had to fill this out before. Well, it's because it's a new requirement. Previously, when I opened up my account, it's been so many years, it didn't apply. It was before 9/11, right? So it didn't apply. So that Patriot Act form is a requirement now, especially for loans as a signing agent. The next page, this is another example of documents that will never have anything, like the signing guidelines, they don't have a recommendation. So you just say what it is. This is a notice to homeowner regarding the assumption of HUD FHA insured mortgages and release of personal liability. That's all you have to say about it. It's a release of personal liability. It basically, and it says in the first sentence what it is. This says that you're obligated to make your monthly mortgage payments. That's all. There's a lot more written there. They're welcome to read it before they sign, but that's all you personally have to say about it. And so you're going to hand it to them, and it looks like another one-page document. Yeah, so handing it to them, one-page document. They're signing it, handing it back. You're checking for quality assurance, making sure they're signing correctly, and dating. You're watching them sign, actually, so you're noticing if they're getting too far over in the margin, encouraging them to stay back in it. This page also, this next document, the transmittal for payment, upfront mortgage insurance premium, the UFMIP. There is not a write-up about what to say about this document. So this is when you're doing your document check at home, you're taking a look and you're going, what is this document? So you take a look and you say, so the first page looks like numbers. There's nothing to sign on the second page. And then you take a closer look at it and you're realizing, well, this is, so it's a HUD form, and it's instructions for Beta Financial for paying mortgage insurance. That's what it is. So all you have to do is read the title of the document, let them know that there's nothing for them to sign. This is for their financial. This is for their lender to be able to pay their mortgage insurance. Okay, so they can look at it if they want. Otherwise, face down in the document pile. So we're almost. Well, we got a good quarter, I think, maybe. The Model Notice Informed Consumer Choice Disclosure Notice. That's a mouthful. And there's no write-up on this, but you can tell what it is. It's a comparison, right? So it's a one-page document, and you're telling them this is a comparison between FHA financing and conventional financing, and they're required to provide this to them. And so they're just signing that they're just acknowledging receipt of it.
Informed consumer choice. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay, and so they're signing. They're handing it back to you. You're thanking them for the document as it comes back. You're checking for a date and signature. So this one is another one it's kind of like it's a bunch of things all mixed up into one. This is the important notice to home buyer, and it covers a lot of things. And you can just look at the bold bulleted item, not bulleted, but the bold. This is a important notice to home buyers. It's a 2-page document, and you have to read this entire document at the time you apply for the loan. They probably have already seen this. They've probably already seen this, but they need to have a signed copy of it that they've acknowledging that they've seen it. It discusses the condition of the property, the interest rate, reminds them not to commit loan fraud and all that good stuff. So I'll just tell them this is an important notice to home buyers. Take a look at it. When you're ready, I need you to date and sign the second page. So, and that's exactly how I say it to them. And if they start pursuing well, what is it for? What does it do? I'm like, well, go ahead and take a look at it. because there's not much more I can say about this document without going into the weeds. So I'm encouraging them to take a look at it. If they need to read it, have them read it out loud. If they've read it and it's confusing, have them read it out loud. If it's still confusing, ask them if they want to stop, and you'll call the loan officer to have them explain it to them. Okay?
Okay, so if there is questions about anything in here, it's the loan officer.
Whoever
that I'm calling, or the financial institution.
It's whoever they're going to provide you in those instructions. Let's look at the.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Right. Okay. There's because it'll say questions at the signing table. Then here's this number to call, right? So if you're at home and you've just received the documents and you've got questions, you're contacting your hiring company at whoever just called you. But if you're there at the signing table and questions come up, you're calling the number that they've instructed you. And if they don't answer, then you're calling the hiring company, because sometimes I've had it happen to me before where they're supposed to have people there to answer questions after hours. We're here on the West Coast, and sometimes these signing companies are wherever, they're over on the East Coast, and they've long gone home. Well, I've had to call and leave a message before. I've had to call whoever hired me, and then sometimes I've had to troubleshoot. And this is where you have to think on your feet. So if they haven't answered you, I leave a voice message as proof that I did try to call them and they did not pick up the phone. I leave a voice message and I'll say, this is what I've had to do. Hey, the borrowers had a question at the signing table. Nobody's picking up. That was about how to fill out a form. They're not quite sure how to fill out this form. They've decided they want to go forward. They're going to fill it out the best they can since nobody's answering. So we're going to proceed with the signing. The borrowers, have indicated they wish to proceed. They're just going to fill it out as best they can and hope that they're correct. And I've covered my base because I called the number that they instructed me to. I left a voice message, and I'll even follow up with an email or send it if there's a text. If it's a cell number that they've provided, I'll send a text to say, hey, nobody's answering. They have a question, so this is what we're doing. And my obligation is met. If it's wrong, and it wasn't a document that needed notarization, what'll happen is they've probably filled out a form that was like a corrections agreement that says if there's a typo or if there's an error that the borrowers are going to work to fix. So it could be that if it was filled out wrong, they're going to resend it to the borrower. The borrower's going to sign it and then send it on.
Is a corrections form always included in every?
Nope, I cannot say that it always is, because errors and omissions form is what it's called, or it's errors and omissions and limited power of attorney. They have different ways of saying it. They're not in every one of them, but it's common. It's unusual when they don't.
Okay.
But it's not for me to say, hey, this document's missing, because I don't know their process.
Okay.
I receive their loan package if something was incomplete, like they send me 2-page document that says page 1 of 2, and then I go to look for page 2 is missing. It's like, because that happened to me before. It said page 1 of 3, page 2 of 3. Well, page 3 of 3 was gone, and I didn't notice until I was actually at the signing table. So I called. Nobody answered at the signing. So guess what? I called the title company directly. I just happened to find her number, and I'm like, hope this is okay, but I'm with your signers, and there's a document here. It says page 3 of 3, but it says page 1 of 2, page 2 of 2, page 3 of 3 is missing. She looked at it. She's like, okay, let me take a look. And she's like, oh, you know what? We just left it out because that was the 3rd page was just another legal copy of the legal description. Well, they had already included it somewhere else in the package, so they just said, we don't need to include it. But they didn't. But I don't know that. And she thanked me. I said, well, I hope it's okay that I called you directly, but I would have worried about it. She's like, no, I'm really glad that you did. Thanks for doing that. And so that puts you in their mind that, like, okay, this person is paying attention. They're paying attention. And so this next page, don't be confused by it. It says allonge to the note. Allonge to the note. Allonge just means an addition. So this is an addition to the note. And it looks like there's places to sign, right? But there's nothing for us to sign. This is all by the lender. So how would I say this to them? Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Signer. This is the allonge to the note. It's a one-page document. There's nothing for you to sign. This is actually for your lender. Your lender needs to sign here. You're welcome to take a look if you want. No? Okay, well then I'm going to put it face down in the stack of documents. Okay, so the quality print on this one is really, sorry if am I messing you up? Okay. Okay, authorization for the Social Security Administration, SSA, to release the Social Security number and SSN verification. And printed name is Jane A. Signer, so who's going to sign here?
Her.
Yep. So it's
And I noticed there's only just for him. Is that because she's the primary? So it's just one of those instances to where you're talking about there may be something just for one and not the other?
That could be. In this case, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. This is just how they received it. Yeah, sometimes it happens that way. Because I didn't see one in here for him that was like this, only for her.
So should this have been something that I called on then, if I noticed that they didn't have one for him?
You could. Yeah, if ever there's a question in your mind, then do. But what I would do is I would gather all your questions, go through the documents first, so you can ask all the questions at once, rather than calling them 3 times for 3 different questions. Just get all the, note all. This is when you're doing quality assurance at home and you're trying to figure out for yourself, do I understand these documents and what's expected? I probably wouldn't have called about this one. Except if page 2 is missing, right?
Okay. Okay, so since there's no... Okay.
So this has page 1 of 2, and the second page is page 2 of 2. The one thing I want to point out here, see where it says tear off? Notice to number holder, there's a spot. Well, there's never a need for them to tear this off because they have a whole copy. They have this in their sets of documents, so don't let them tear it up. They have a copy of this if they truly require it.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm putting this face down. The FHA application of unused escrow funds authorization. So this is another one that's already been filled in for us. You see that checkbox has reduced the payoff amount for existing mortgage. If it was blank, if none of these were selected, this is where you instruct them. They have to choose. And I might even put a sticky note up here, whoops, especially in the beginning. I might put a sticky note up there that says choose. Just something that reminds me, if this was blank, that it needs their attention. Because sometimes we get so focused on signatures and dates that we forget to look for, well, what is the document asking for? So here I would, if this was blank, I'd have a sticky note on there to remind me. It says choose. But it's already filled out, so we don't need that. We don't need choose on there. And so this is the FHA application of unused escrow funds authorization. So what to do with the old escrow account. And so when they're ready, they're going to sign and date, and then hand it back to you. And then you're going to put it face down in the stack of loan documents. So this document here, you can see the quality is not good. That's my fault. If it comes to you like that, if it's printing like this for you, verify that the document came that way. If the printing issue is on your side, you're going to want to reprint this. You see the little scribbly black marks on there? That's me. That's must have drugged my keystroke or something in there when I was editing the PDF. So that's all my error. But in real life, they would never want to have black marks across the writing. So here, see where I have the sticky notes? I'm going to just put it here. So there's a little square right here that gets missed. The signatory box, it says signatory attests that he, she has read. So I always put a little sticky note right above it just to remind them that it needs their attention because it gets missed. And also it's a reminder for me to don't let it get missed. And then, so they're both named up here in the Jane A. Signer, John Q. Signer. They're both named. So it's going to be Jane A. Signer and date, John Q. Signer and date. In the center here where it says title, if this was some kind of a commercial loan application or something like that, their title, or if they were doing it on behalf of a company, title is like president on behalf of so-and-so. So if it's just every average Joe, John and Jane signer, they're not going to put a title there. So this is the request for transcript of tax return. And this document is 2 pages. So the first page is the document. The second page, nice super small font, is the instructions for the document. So you're handing it to them like that, and then they're signing it, dating it, giving it back. You're checking to make sure everything's correct. The next page is the request for taxpayer identification number and certification. Okay, so this one is listed specifically in Jane A. Signer's name, and so she's going to sign there. And this is one of those government forms. The first page is the form, and then pages 2 through 4 are instructions for the form. That's just the way it goes. Okay. So I always make sure to hand them the whole document, handing them the whole document. So you're going to hand it to Jane Signer. She's going to hand it back to you. Your quality, going to quickly check to make sure it's signed and dated correctly. Okay, just a few more left to get through too. Get through. The hazard insurance authorization requirements and disclosure form. You're going to see many variations of this form in loan documents. This is a 2-page document. So you're handing it to them like this. This is the hazard insurance authorization requirements and disclosure. Basically, it says if they are in a hazard zone, they're going to purchase any necessary hazard insurance as needed. So
hazard zone would be like us with the volcano issues, or
it's whatever. I mean, if you wanted to break it into, they can.
No, I'm just asking just for me. When we hear hazard zones, are we talking about like in a volcanic area?
Some people live by the water, by the ocean, and so maybe it's flood zone, or if they're in a valley from the river, and there could be a flood zone from a river. Okay. It's any hazard zone. Okay, so there we go. The compliance agreement. And so remember we talked about the errors and omissions and that stuff. This is another word, another term for it. Compliance agreement. So it says if there's any. This discusses if there's any clerical errors or typos that the borrowers are going to. They agree to help them make those corrections. And there's a spot for the borrowers to sign, and then there's a spot for the notary. Okay. And so you're telling them, here's the compliance agreement. It's just going to, you just say if there are any typographical errors or typos in the documents, you agree to help them make those corrections. So you're going to date and sign the bottom, or you're going to date and sign Mr. and Mrs. Signer, and then I'm going to notarize. Okay? And so this, you notice this notary form, now they're back to, so yeah, and it's got, and I'm checking here because it's got Jane A. Signer, John Q. Signer. I'm making sure those names are correct. And then if there's any verbiage, like if this was one person, or if it was a woman, I would obviously cross out the he. All the pronouns that didn't apply, I would cross out. "21st day of March 2020, signature of the notary residing at," so I'm going to neatly print my address here. If I need 2 lines, I'm going to go down and right rather than go over into the margin.
Okay. And then up there at the top, dated effective this blank day, that's my part as well?
So that's a good question. And maybe what I would have done is included another arrow, because I would have done this, and I would have instructed them to write this 21st day of March 2020.
Okay.
But yeah, that's probably what I should have done, is had a sticky note there. Now, if this notarial language was up at the top of the page, and required, then I would fill that out. But because it's right here, because they're saying this is a statement they're making, I would have them write in their own writing, 21st day of March 2020, date and sign. They're handing it back to me, and then I'm going through with the notary. Going through and signing as the notary. Flood hazard determination. Flood hazard determination. And what this does, this is a one-page document, and this, pursuant to federal regulations, are required to let you know whether your property is in a, determined as a flood hazard zone, sorry. And if it is determined that way, then you're agreeing to purchase any necessary insurance. But if you just said this alone, this is the flood hazard determination, determines whether or not your property is in a flood hazard zone. That's enough. That's enough to say. If they need more information, have them read the document.
Okay.
And then they're going to date and sign and date rather, and then hand it back to you. The borrower certification and authorization. So this is sort of another 3-in-1. It's like a combination of forms. So they're certifying. This is the borrower's certification and authorization. It's a one-page document. You're certifying that you're applying for a refinance loan to Beta Financial. You're authorizing the release of information. And yeah, so, and I'll say, take a look. When you're ready, sign and date the bottom. And they're signing and dating. They're handing it back to you. The Equal Credit Opportunity Act notice. So the lender's required to let them know that they are not going to discriminate. Okay, so this is just acknowledgement that they've received the notice. And so now here's the big dog, and this is the closing disclosure, and it's a form that's super valuable. Very often it's at the top of the loan package. Sometimes it's buried in the middle. Sometimes it's towards the end, like this one. But we want to keep it in whatever stacking order that they sent it to us. We want to keep it in that same order. This is the closing disclosure. It is a 5-page document, because I'm looking at the bottom of the page. 5-page document. This contains a breakdown of all your closing costs. Okay, this has all the details of your loan and has a breakdown of all your closing costs. So it's 5 pages, so I'm gathering up 5 pages in my hand so I can hand them the whole document and not just signature pages. And it looks like the signature is on the last page. So this is a closing disclosure. It's a 5-page document. It has all the details of your loan. This is how I'm handing it to them. It contains all the details of your loan and a breakdown of all closing costs. Nice big font. And if they have questions about things, you're not calling out, you're not saying the loan amount. You're saying, here's the loan amount. Here's your interest rate, here's the principal and interest. So it's a lot of pointing. It's a lot of pointing. If they have questions, most questions that they have are answered by that document. The next page is the addendum to closing disclosure. Addendum just means an addition. It's just an added piece. Added piece. The borrower consent to the use of tax return information. So they've already filled out the form for the proof of their tax returns or for the joint tax returns. Now this is permission to use that information. And so they're having to sign and date that. Borrower consent to the use of tax return information. So this one, it may look familiar to you, right? We already did one of these earlier, didn't we?
We did.
We did. Well, and for some reason, this one just has Jane A. Signer's name on it. So this might have been a document that we called when we did our first run-through of the documents. Maybe we called to say, hey, closing company, or hey, hiring company, you've got these 2 4506T, the request for transcript returns. you've got one with both signers' name, both borrowers' name on it, then you've got one with just Jane's name. What gives? What do you want me to do? And they'll probably say, they probably should not have included this, is what happened. The one with both names is the one that they probably needed, but that's not for us to say here or there. And so they'll probably instruct us to, well, obviously they filed joint tax returns because they're married, so John Q. Signer is going to have to print his name here. He's going to have to, print his social security number. You're calling attention to this little signatory box here, the little square that often gets missed. Jane Signer is going to sign and date, and then John Q. Signer is going to sign and date at the bottom. And it's just a duplicate, and that's one of the frustrations you'll see is sometimes these documents that you get, they're very obvious, appear to be duplicates, or maybe there's a specific reason they need to have multiple documents signed of the same document. That's not for us to say, whether or not it should be signed. We're going to have them sign every document that's presented to us because we don't want that liability of having them, having an incomplete loan package. So they've signed and dated. You hand it to them, they're going to sign and date.
So you're saying that even though his name is not on here, I need to have him handwrite his information?
Right, but see on section 2A it says, let's take a look at this. Section 2A, it says, if joint tax return, enter spouse's name shown on tax return. Right? They're a married couple. We already had a document like this. If this was the only document like this, then I'd say, yeah, just have Jane sign. But because we already had there is a document like this in here, exactly like it, that had Jane A. Signer's, that had John Q. Signer's name listed. So this is probably a duplicate, and so for training purposes, pretend that we had a question about this when we were doing our own QA at home and said, hey, hiring company, you've got two of these forms. One of them has both names. The second one just has Jane's, Mrs. Signer's name on it. What do you want me to do? Oh, obviously. So when they say yes, have them fill it out. It's the borrower, Mr. Signer. It's printing his name. We are never filling out any of these documents. Mr. Signer is putting him John Q. Signer, social number, okay, and that's all that's needed up there. Check this box when they sign, Jane A. Signer signature and date, John Q. Signer signature and date, okay? Worst case scenario, say that you got to this and you didn't notice it and you're at the signing table and this one just has Jane A. Signer's name on it. It's not going to hurt my guess is it's not going to hurt anything if you return this document with just Jane A. Signer's, because there is another document exactly like this in the closing package that has both of their names. That's my guess. But if there's ever any question, you want to clear that up with your hiring company. Okay, so that is the last document, and I'll tell them, okay, that's it. That's the last document. You did great. And so now look, the last page is obviously not going to be. This is not what the signing company produces. This is I created this. So this is how to close. Do you want to read that?
Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Signer, we've gone through all of the loan documents, and now I must take a few minutes to do a quality control check before I leave. So I am going to review the paperwork and make sure that we didn't overlook anything. So if you want to just give me a few minutes, just go ahead and do what you're doing, and I'm just going to go back through these documents to make sure we didn't miss any signatures or dates. And so now time has gone by. All right, everything looks good. You have your duplicate set of loan documents and my business cards for your records. I have sealed up your loan documents in this FedEx envelope, and I'll drop it off at the FedEx facility as soon as possible. You have any questions before I leave?
Okay, and so there's one thing that I want to, after we do the review page by page, make a star here, put a star right below that, and
Review page by page.
right, and write the words closing check, right? Because remember, we can't seal up that document without putting that cashier's check in there, okay?
Yeah.
We want to make sure that's in there. And so you clarified that they had it. Okay, you've got your ID, great, and you've got your check, your cashier's check for closing for $9.45 made out to XXX. Okay, and then you've instructed them to write the loan number and their last name on the memo line, and then you're having them set it aside. And so now you want to make sure, now it comes time to put all this together. So you've done your quality assurance check. You've taken off all this little signature sticky arrows so that the next team doesn't get that. And then at the very top, when you go to put that, you got the little clip that your documents are coming in, right? And you brought with you your pre-addressed FedEx envelope. So you're clipping the documents back together, and that check, that cashier's check, is going to be at the very top.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
You know how at the very beginning of the appointment, we do our journal act?
Mm-hmm.
Can I go ahead and do you recommend getting that cashier's check at that moment and putting it at the top make that a top priority just as?
You can note in your journal that you collected a cashier's check for closing. What I would do, set it aside. Remember, you're typically at a kitchen table. There's a workspace that you've got. Make sure you want to have their IDs together in one spot. Don't just let them hand you the ID and then you put it away, because sometimes you need it again later on. And then rather than have them dig for it, it's just have it all right there. The cashier's check with their ID, right? Because they may feel safer knowing where that check is and then seeing that it's okay. The paperwork's all done. Now my signer's collecting everything. She's got my cashier's check clipped to the top of this loan package, and I clip it because you don't want it to get you don't want it running loose in there, because sometimes they'll take out the stack of documents, and if there's a loose check in there, it'd be so easy for that check to just get thrown out with that envelope. So you're right, just like you've got it clipped all back together, that's how you're going to do it. And so we are officially an hour over time, and that's okay, because this is a learning curve, and we had a little bit of a late start, so that's okay. But let's continue with this. Do you have any questions before I go? Typically they're going to say no, but you want to give them the opportunity. And they'll probably, if they do ask their question, or if they might say, can I get an electronic copy of this form?
I cannot give you an electronic copy, but I can inform your lender that you would like that. I will let them know that.
Okay, I'll inform my hiring company. Right, whoever, and it could be the lender. If the lender hired you, yeah.
Okay.
But I'll make a note of it yes, you say, I can't email it to you, but I'll make a note of it that you've requested it, and that's something that will need to come from your lender.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time. I hope this was a positive experience for you, and I wait for them to answer, because they'll say, you'll know right off the bat how it went. You can tell by their expression, and sometimes if they were grumpy to begin with, they will have softened and realized, all right, I'm taking it out on the wrong person. This woman is just here doing her job, and so they will have softened. Hope this was a positive experience for you. And if they say yes, here's what else I always do. I did it yesterday, and I'm like, great, I'm glad it was positive. Hey, if you get a chance, if you want to mention it to your lender, or to your loan officer rather, that I did do a good job for you today and you were pleased with it, and if you could pass on the good word, maybe I'll get another assignment. I'll get another, invited out again to do some more work. It's helpful,
Okay.
And you've given them a business card already, so that they can know who to recommend. That's another reason you give a business card, so that they can say, so they can know who the lender is, sorry, not the lender, so they can remember who the signing agent was that they sat with, because otherwise they're going to forget us. They've got so many other things on their mind. Our names are probably the last on the list to keep track of. But so giving them a business card can be good and bad, because that means if they didn't like us, so obviously they're going to say, oh, that Carmen Lane, I really didn't care for her, But if they liked me, if they thought I did a good job, they're going to be willing to say something good and positive. And that's the idea, because we all want more business. And if we can get the good words to get spread, people complain quickly. And if they can say something positive, that'd be a great thing. So the other thing is, the last thing I wrote, depart immediately. And why do I put depart immediately? Because sometimes you're going to build such a rapport with these folks that they will invite you for coffee, they will invite you for dinner, they will invite you for a drink. I had a gentleman so relieved that it was over, he's like, I gotta have a beer. Can I get you anything? You sure you don't want one? And it was really sweet of him, very kind, and I very politely declined the offer. Of course, we're going to decline any request, even in its sincere invitations. Alcohol we're going to decline. Obviously, we're not going to sit down and have a meal with them because our jobs aren't done. But the point is they'll invite you because if they build a rapport with you, they instantly like you, you instantly like them. And I had a couple at a signing that sent me off with a cup of coffee. It was an early morning, crack of dawn. I had to leave the house. Didn't have coffee. I think I told you about this before. And she's like, they had a Keurig. Well, make her a cup of coffee. So the guy's bringing coffee over, and I had already declined when we began because I make it a policy. There's no water, no coffee on the signing table on my end anyways, because I'm deathly afraid. I'm afraid as soon as I do accept a cup of coffee, I'm going to knock that coffee over. So the signing's over. I'm just doing a quality assurance check, and the wife says, are you sure you don't want some coffee? I'm like, actually a cup sounds good. And I was starting to say but if it could be to go, but I didn't want to put that pressure on them. Not everybody has to go mugs. And so she's telling her husband, oh, make her a cup of coffee, make her a cup of coffee. So he's coming over and he's sloshing this cup. And I'm like, no, stay over there. And I said, that's really sweet of you, but I do not trust myself to spill anything while I'm checking. And that would be the last thing I want to do is get a coffee cup ring on their documents. So depart. The last thing is depart because you have work to do. If there's scan backs required by your closing company or by your hiring company rather, you need to get that done. At the very least, if it's still within business hours, you need to get that package dropped. Right. If you can do a signing and also get it dropped that same day, especially for the bigger companies that really pay attention to metrics, that is really important. So if it's within your power to get it dropped that same day, of course you want to. But then just get out of there because your business is over with. If they love you, great. Leave on a high note. Leave while they still love you. Leave on a high note. So that's it for the presentation. It's okay that we've gone a little bit over, but I want to know what other questions do you have that you want answered to, and I'll do my best.
So I went back to the I-9. That was one of the questions that I had.
Okay.
Page 21.
Page 21?
In the spiral notebook that she gave me.
I-9 I-9 immigration forms. Okay, so let me go back to this. Okay. Immigration forms. So let me just put this back in order. And this is the last page here. Let me put the documents in order and then we'll come back to that. Give me 1 sec. Okay, and then let me just use the original one that we used for them, not my cheat sheet notebook. Okay, so you were looking at, tell me what page on this. What tab? Is it tab 1?
Yeah, tab 1, page 21.
Tab 1, page 21. Can I notarize I-9 employment forms, certificate of life forms, or other specific forms? Okay, what's your question?
Because I was thinking that you said that you couldn't. So I know that there is no.
You could. You
I
cannot.
know that there is no spot for notary, but can I?
Look at what the state of Washington says. The I-9 employment form. So the question is, can you notarize I-9 form or sign off on I-9 forms? But state of Washington says the I-9 employment form asks for a signature from the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services as individual, as a business representative, not a notary.
Right, so because of this, it does not need to be notarized. So
Right.
so I can,
Are you the employer? It's usually the employer that signs that. So if you're asking whether you as an employer can sign these for your employees, I would say yes. But as a notary, no. As a notary signing agent, absolutely no. Because we don't do anything that has to do with immigration. Nothing. Those are filled out by the employer.
okay.
And it's just not.
Okay, so as a business representative, okay, so you can do it as a business representative, but not as a notary, okay.
Right, because it's the business that does it. Whoever's hiring that person, the employer fills that out.
But if a business contracts me as their representative,
I would be
do
careful, and that's a legal question. It's a good question. I would say ask if they have anybody who is a friend as an attorney, ask them. I suspect, I'm not an attorney myself, I suspect that that's not something we can do. In California, they have classes about how to do that, and it's allowed in the state of California. In the state of Washington, no. We don't do anything that has to do with immigration. Now, if you have a business, and this is totally separate from notary signing agent. If you have a business and you have somebody in front of you and they need a signature to, for their I-9 form, then it seems like something you could do as the employer. If you're not their employer, no, we don't do immigration forms. We don't do I-9 forms. That's not something that we do. We're not permitted to do it. Okay? Anything else? Julie, questions? How are you doing? Okay.
and then the other ones that I wrote down, with considering or trying to figure out my fee, how many signers, are the documents ready, how far do I have to travel?
I would make are the documents ready the last question you asked, but continue.
Okay. How far do I have to travel? How many pages?
You're not going to ask them how far you have to travel. You're going to ask
No,
them where it is.
Okay.
Right.
Let me reword that.
You can say what is the address. They don't have, if they're unwilling to give you the exact address, the city and the to give them the city at least, so you can ballpark how much driving you're going to.
Okay. And then what do I have to do to send it back, and are there scanned back? So these are just all questions that I either need to ask them or that I need to take into consideration for myself. Did I miss anything?
So here I would ask, type of signing,
Okay.
how many signers, if they know how many documents, how many pages that it involves, that's great. So type of signing, how many signers, where are the signers located, where am I expected to go, so I can determine how far I'm driving. Are there any scan backs? Any scan backs required? And then there was another question in there that you had about getting documents back. Say again that question.
What do I have to do to send them back?
Okay, so that one I wouldn't include it initially. I wouldn't initially.
Okay.
That's going to come in the notary instructions sheet.
Okay.
That's going to come in that, and they'll tell you exactly, because if they're scan backs, then if they're scan backs, you're going to take it home, you're going to scan them up, scan them in your scanner, you're going to email it to them, or you're going to upload it to their site, and then remember that that label that shipping label. So that tells you whether it's going to be, and on there it said FedEx, right? And so what you want to do is you want to make sure you have a stack of UPS and FedEx envelopes. And even,
Do they charge for those?
nope, they don't. Sign up for a business account for FedEx and for UPS. UPS is really great. They even provide the shipping labels themselves. So these hiring companies are emailing us a shipping label, right, to print out. Well, obviously we're printing them out on a label, right? Well, those labels, we can either buy them and let it come out of our own pocket, or we could say, hello, dear UPS, I would like to sign up for a business account. Okay, and here's some supplies I'd like to have, and make sure you get a variety of their stacking of their shipping envelopes. You want to get some business size. You want to get most of them. You want them to be the legal size, because that's what we're dealing with in loan documents. Is I'd say 95% of all of them are going to have a mix of legal and letter size. So you want to get more of the legal size. Okay. And then I noticed that for California, and those are the cardboard packs, right? Not for California, for Florida, they seem to prefer. They'll say, do not use cardboard, use only polypack. Polypack is like the plastic film, and I'm guessing it has, is like a plastic bag, a shipping bag, and I'm guessing it has to do with the humidity down there in Florida. But whatever instruction they give us, we have to follow. If they're saying, hey, no polypack, or no polypacks, okay, well then I'm going to use a cardboard envelope. Or if they say no cardboard, only polypacks, I'm going to follow whatever specific mailing requirement they give us. I'm going to follow that. But supply-wise, UPS and FedEx, if you go online, you could sign up as a business, sign up your business, and they will send you free shipping supplies. But you can also get them from the UPS store. If they're not independently operated, like there's one up in Hawks Prairie, nice guy. It's not independent. It's a franchise, right? It's a franchise. Is what I'm trying to say. And so he's reluctant because he doesn't want to hand out his envelopes, because then he's got to get them restacked. So he gave me a couple to start with, and he let me know what a huge favor he was doing for me. And so then I'm like, okay, note to self, I can't bother him to get. But for one-offs or two-offs, you can. There's a FedEx shipping center in Hawks Prairie, and that's where you could go and you can walk in and you can get free. They don't do free labels, but they do free envelopes, and whatever you need, let them know what you need and they'll get them for you. They'll give it to you for free. Or you can have them order online and they'll mail it to you. They'll ship it to you. Because those shipping labels, it adds up. The cost of those labels adds up. And the less we're paying out of pocket, the better. Julie had a point about supplies. Make sure you're printing your documents not on an inkjet printer. You want to use LaserJet, or the laser printer. You're going to find the more you do, there may be a time where you're like, this single tray printer isn't doing it because you're having to switch out. Switch out. Okay, the duplex printing is a really good idea. And I was so blessed on the day that I figured out how to get my printer to understand to automatically print. Say, there's a setting you can have it say, I want you to automatically detect whether it's a legal or a letter size. For whatever reason, I couldn't get it to work for a long time, and I'm gesturing. I'm gesturing into the camera. So for a long time, I was having to switch them out, and it was really frustrating. And so Julie remembers the day that I was singing, oh, hooray, I did it. So yeah, printing, knowing, troubleshooting your own printer, knowing what it's like to print, recognizing when you've misprinted. You want to practice your mistakes. Get those out of the way so that you're not doing your mistakes on a live package. Okay. And also because time, it's like, oh my gosh, I only have, I've got to leave by 6 o'clock to get there to the signing by whatever time, and I still have to print the documents and I'm having trouble. Julie's been there when I was freaking out. It can be stressful. And so when you're starting, allow yourself more time than you think you're going to need. Don't overextend yourself. Don't accept back-to-back assignings. Not when you're beginning. Okay. Don't do it. It'll just create more problems for you. And also because you'll think everybody, okay, well, I could do a signing at 1 and then another signing at 5. I could do that. Well, you can. If the 5 o'clock signing people, if they sent you your documents that morning and you could get them printed out in time, then yeah, you may be able to do the signing, but then you have to know how far are these signings apart. I'm going to have to drive to get there. And your signing is going to take longer than you think. They tell you, oh, this signing is going to take 45 minutes. Right. I've had a 45-minute signing before, and it was for a loan modification. And yeah, it was like a 24, 25-page document. It was no big deal. It should have taken 10 minutes, but everybody's different. They sign differently. Suddenly you think, well, why are you just now reading these documents? You should have read them before. Why? Oh, but okay, if you need to read them, sir, I understand. And so you're waiting. So don't take whatever recommendation they say that the time is going to take that with a grain of salt. I try to set the expectation with folks to say, especially if it's a big package, this is typically a 90-minute signing, give or take. It depends on how many questions are asked and how much time is needed to go through each document. But if you say 90 minutes and they finish in an hour, they're like, yeah, we beat the system. But if you're over promising and going, oh, it's going to be a 45-minute signing, and then they're sitting there 2 hours later going, what happened to this 45-minute signing that you promised? But I always say it's going to be 90 minutes, give or take, and it doesn't matter what the signing is. I'll say 90 minutes, give or take. It depends on how many questions come up, and how much time is spent on each document.
Okay.
So
there was something that you said earlier too about them having the documents ready.
Them having.
So
So the signing company.
Yes.
Sometimes if it's a signing company, remember they work for title companies and lenders, and they're just trying to line up people. They're trying to line up bodies for these signings, and then the title company or whatever the bank, they've got to get together and they've got to get their documents. Right? Well, they're not always ready by the time those appointments are being made. It should be. I think you shouldn't be calling me up to book an appointment unless you have documents ready.
Right.
That is, ideally, that's how it should happen. That is not how it happens. And even they'll be on the phone with you and you'll say, hey, are documents ready? Because you're debating whether or not to accept the assignment. And sometimes they'll say, oh yeah, documents are ready.
And you're lying through their teeth.
Or they thought they were ready, but they're not. Or something's come up and they've got to be reissued now. So that can be frustrating. And so that's why when you're scheduling to begin with, don't do more than one a day. Don't put that stress on yourself. Master it first. And then, I'll tell you, it's a stressful day for me. I did 3 in one day. That was a stressful day for me. And maybe some people are just better at this than me. But that was a busy and stressful day. And of course, if you're in a city, depends on where you're at. I'm out in the country, and my signings are other places out in the country. And if you're in a city and you're doing lots of signings in really close, tight locations, if your perimeter is small, then I could see where you could do really easy back-to-back signings. It is not so for me, because sometimes it takes me 90 minutes or 2 hours to get to a signing. And if there's road construction, why I don't want to book my signings too close together, because there's too many unpredictable things that are out of our control, especially in wintertime. We can't predict what the snow is going to be like or what the Black Hills are going to be like when traveling. And I always make that, I set that expectation with this hiring company. I'll say, like the one that I had in South Bend a while ago, we were having quite a bit of flooding. There were road closures, there were detours, and I told them this. I'm like, it's going to be a long drive to get down where I need to be. It was almost a 3-hour drive in good weather. And I said, it's possible I may be later, so I need to be able to have you understand that. If we start late, I don't want to be dinged for it if it's something that's out of my control. And so if the borrower is flexible, yes, I could accept the assignment. If it has to be at this time, I may not be able to meet that because of external conditions. And so just keep that in mind. And also, some of the people that call us to book us, they're not even in Washington. They don't know what we're going through. They don't know how far. I had the signing that I had the other day. She says, are you available for a signing in Hoquiam? I'm like, okay, obviously you're not from here. That's Hoquiam. That's Hoquiam, but locals know how to say all the Indian, the names. Or this other name for Tokeland. She didn't call it Tokeland. I was trying to understand what city she was saying. She was trying to say Tokeland, Washington, but she was saying Tokeland, or can you travel to Tokeland? I'm like, Tokeland. You're saying Tokeland. Yes, I traveled to Tokeland. So just, make sure you're getting paid for the work that you're doing and for the travel that you're doing, and to allow enough time for your first signings. Okay? Anything, what else is on your list? You got one more question, right?
No, that was it. The other stuff is just, I noted the accordion style folder with the strap for protection. I made a notation of that. And even though I've been told this, taught this before, I still reiterated only one notarial journal can be used at a time.
Right.
I rewrote that.
And your question about the I-9 forms, I think it would be good for you to send an email to notaries and give them a call. They probably won't be able to answer right away, but so if you send them an email, whatever they reply back, it's in writing. That's one of the benefits of emailing a question. But pose that question to them too, and see what they write back. Because they're probably they're gonna direct you to, they're gonna say, well, what do the guidelines say? And you could say, I've looked at the guidelines, it's not clear. And they also have to be careful not to give us legal advice.
Right.
So, they'll do the best they can. They'll do the best they can. Google,
For what it's worth, specifically with an I-9 form, just because my supervisory job that I've had, an I-9 form is just simply, do you know exactly what an I-9 form is? Okay, so it's just the employee comes in with their 2 forms of ID verifying their citizenship. And so there's nothing to notarize on an I-9 form. And it's, like Carmen was saying, it's an employer function to certify whoever they're bringing these IDs to. The employer is certifying, yes, they showed me these. I certify they showed them to me, and you're just signing. There's no notary function.
right, and she understood that. But the thing is, say that ends up being false documents that they've showed you. Now you're on the hook. You've just approved something that you really didn't have the power to approve. So, sorry, it's not worth $10 to me to do that, So, you're going to get questions like that. You're going to get calls from other states or from overseas asking about apostilles or apostilles, however you want to pronounce it. We don't deal with that as notary publics. Definitely not as notary signing agents. You're going to refer them to the state of Washington. Other states have different permissions for their notaries, but Washington State, that is a Secretary of State function. All right, I think we've wrapped it up. We've gone an hour and a half over time. So I think we're good. All set. So that concludes our training. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did an awesome job.
Thank you, I appreciate that.